COVIDing, doing stuff around the house.
Jerking off a lot, right?
Yep, got a Pornhub subscription, smoking all sorts of weed. Yeah,
Most people are out of hand sanitizer. You're out of lotion.
yeah. Well, I create my own, if you know what I mean. Yeah. Anyway,
That's how you keep your face all wrinkle free and everything, isn't it?
that's how they did it back in the day. Back in the times that we're about to talk about, they just on everybody's faces, even the guys. I mean, it was all the rage.
The fuck are you drinking?
This
It's in a water
is
bottle, but it's fucking neon colored.
it's orange. It has some Mio drink enhancer in it. I call squirty stuff because you squirted.
You're just all about the squirty stuff today, aren't you?
Thank you. I call it squirty stuff with my kids now. Now you fucking perverted it. Great. I can't fucking do it with a straight face.
Walking around squirting stuff with my kids. So.
Oh Jesus, dude. There's squirt guns. You play in the pool. You bastard. So what's going on in the world, man?
So new Joe Exotic news.
What?
Guess who he wants to play him if they make a biopic movie about him? Have you heard this yet?
I saw this, and we actually did it last week. Remember?
Did we?
The best mullets?
Well, there's the best mullets, but I just saw an article this morning.
And Joe
Dirt's one of the people.
Is
Brad Pitt he has on that short list of people to play him too.
Oh, I didn't see that one. That's pretty fucking ideal.
And then Dax Shepard. Do you know who Dax Shepard is? Another actor. He tweeted that if he's not involved in that in some way, if it gets made, like he's gonna be super disappointed. So he wants to fucking play.
Shut the fucking thing down. Hell yeah. I bet Brad Pitt does too. It's just, who the fuck would it, you know who Brad Pitt would actually play in that documentary?
Who's that?
Fucking Carol Baskin. Brad Pitt playing him is like him hiring those fucking singers to sing his voice that he lip synced to. Did you find out about that?
Yeah, I heard about that this week too.
Oh, I am so disappointed. I was almost a fan.
Which is funny because as I was watching it, I was like, that voice doesn't go with that person. Like,
no, I was shocked. Yeah. Now it makes sense. But he can legally say that he's singing them because he paid for the rights. So I guess Joe Exotic is singing them.
Who the fuck was it? Milli Vanilli back in the day. I mean,
right.
They got all kinds of famous off doing that shit. Why can't Joe Exotic?
Right. Well, but they didn't have it in their paperwork. Joe had it in the contract.
Did he?
Yeah, that he was allowed to say that he was singing it.
So he was
like it was a whole kerfuffle or something.
Businessman at some things than others. Then
he was a millionaire. Yeah, Joe Exotic's a better businessman than me. I mean, he is way more popular than Higher Minds podcast. He's doing something right.
We need fucking tigers and meth.
And yeah, we need to seduce some straight men. First, I need to turn gay though. Like, yeah.
I think we need to seduce lesbians. Is how it works for us being straight guys.
We need to seduce lesbians? Oh. That is something that I will never accomplish. Like, that sounds like, I don't know. I think I would hate myself if I did that.
It's so much pressure.
It is. And it's like, I don't know. That's creepy in a way. That's like, have you ever got hit on by a guy before?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, like, I'm flattered. Thank you. I don't swing that way. And it's not their fault, but it's a little irksome to assume that I would. Not that it's a problem. I don't know. It's a whole constellation of emotion when it happens. And that's what would happen with trying to flip a lesbian, which I respectfully would not do because I respect lesbians and their life choices. Does that sound right?
I think the only time I've ever been mistaken as gay is when you and I were walking down the street with your little chihuahua, and that fucking homeless guy judged the fuck out of us.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I get mistaken for gay all the time.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, I think a lot of it's the chihuahua.
Yeah.
I think most of it's because I'm sporting a dildo all the time. Like I went as a hat.
I'm thinking it probably has the chihuahua and the rainbow sticker on the back of your car are probably the two biggest.
And I love penis. Like that doesn't help. That bumper sticker.
And then the tramp stamp too.
Yeah. Come here. Anyway.
Did you watch any WrestleMania last night?
I'm going to let you answer that one.
Well, let me tell you about WrestleMania last night.
What happened at WrestleMania?
Weird as shit because there's no audience there.
Yeah, I heard.
In a giant stadium, so like they walk 20 feet to the ring. It's not all extravagant and everything.
That's disappointing.
Better than I expected it to be.
Really?
But by no means good.
You know what they could have done it as? They could have done it as filmed it like an actual soap opera.
They did the Undertaker match as the main event last night, and it was filmed like a fucking horror movie. It was actually kind of cool.
Isn't he 80?
That kind of saved the entire show.
That's cool. Like maybe
he's like in his 50s.
Is it worth watching if you're not a wrestling fan? Like objectively speaking?
That match I would say was.
Okay.
Because of how it was filmed.
Okay.
The rest of it was not very good. I was hanging out with H and K, and K doesn't watch wrestling at all. Has never watched wrestling.
Oh, really?
H and I used to watch it back in the day, and I still watch WrestleMania every year. So she's sitting there like, this is weird with nobody there, and you can hear him talking and breathing and everything. And then after it was over, I went and pulled up like one of the main events from like last year's WrestleMania, and she's like, "Oh yeah, this is way bigger."
Yeah, like you'd be able to hear him breathe.
After she saw what a real WrestleMania was like, it really made sense to how weird that fucking one we just watched was.
Yeah, that'd be weird. Like you'd hear him breathe, you could hear him sweat, you could hear him like the mat really well, right?
And you don't realize how much the crowd plays a role in wrestling until there's no crowd there to chant and fucking flaunt to and shit like that.
Right. You know, I've noticed that in a lot of I watch a lot of late night monologues, and yeah, it's weird. Like they're doing it from home and shit. Like it's strange to see that we have better production value than Seth Meyers and Stephen Colbert. Like when we're at home, it's kind of cool.
You know, I don't watch TV at all, so it didn't even dawn on me that all those late night talk shows and shit don't have an audience right now.
Yeah. And jokes are just
like that never even crossed my mind.
Yeah, funny jokes just land flat without an audience. It's so weird.
That's why they have the laugh light and the applause light and all that shit.
Yeah, we need that. I said at the beginning, we need to add a laugh track. One of these episodes will have a laugh track throughout the entire thing.
You can go ahead and edit it in the laugh track.
Yeah, that sounds like
a lot of fucking
Yeah,
fun.
It does. Doesn't it? Anyway.
So what the fuck are we talking about today, Darby?
We are talking about the Knights Templar.
And who the fuck are we?
Oh, yes, we are the Higher Minds Podcast. I am Papa Darby.
And I'm Scott.
Hi, Scott.
And we're talking about the Templar today.
Yep. Big subject. Lots and lots of history. Stretches over a couple hundred years. Few hundred years. Actually, and there's something to say up until now. This, however, was going to be somewhat of a two-parter. See, the history of the Knights Templar kind of splits in half, and it makes it so it makes a nice segue into the next subject, which we'll mention in a little bit.
See, and I had never even dug into the Knights Templar before.
No?
Medieval history, doesn't interest me at all.
Doesn't it? I love it.
I like shit older than medieval stuff, and I like shit newer than medieval stuff. But I tend to jump right over that span of history.
Oh, see, I was really into King Arthur and stuff, and the Celts and whatnot, and yeah, so it's always interested me, and especially when Dan Brown, the movie, The Da Vinci Code came out, that was a big old craze. And so, I fell into that. But then after that, I actually getting into the actual history of the Templars and the Priory of Sion and what this stuff was and the history of it. And I got really deep into it about 15 years ago. And I haven't really looked at it since because I really, really studied it back then. But it was.
See, I think I rented the Da Vinci Code when it came out and haven't seen it since then.
Yeah, I haven't seen it in a while either. It's not.
I remember it being good, but not good enough to sit through a second time.
Yeah, no, yeah. I agree with that. Did you watch the sequels?
I don't think I ever saw Angels and Demons. Is there more of them?
No, I think there was one more. There was a third one. And they were okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I ever saw Angels and Demons.
Yeah. I mean, it was the same formula for both, and so it kind of we'd already seen it.
Yeah.
It was it was entertaining. That's fine. And Tom Hanks is always great. But
yeah, I can't think of anything that is shitty with Tom Hanks in it, so.
Nah. Oh, no, Bosom Buddies.
Don't travel.
You ever watch Bosom Buddies?
But never even heard of it.
It was his first sitcom back in the 70s, I want to say, 70s or 80s. Like he was it was like Perfect Strangers but not foreign. It was just not good. It was kind of shit.
I didn't realize he did TV before he did film.
I think that was it.
I guess it makes sense, but
yeah. But anyway, Dan Brown. So that's how I got into this, and there's a lot of that story in that book. The book is good too. Has a lot of threads you can pull that have a lot of actual history. But the books themselves, all of that, the storyline, that's mostly it. It's just there for teasers for as far as actual history goes. So I'm going to start with and basically who they were and what they did, and then you're going to tell us about some of the more nuanced stories.
Yeah. Yeah, let's call it nuanced.
All right. So my sources were mostly history.com and Wikipedia. The Knights Templar were
There's a ton of History Channel shit on this subject, too.
Because they're so, like, conspiracy rich.
Mm-hmm.
There's a...
Yeah, there's a ton of shit from the History Channel on this, on YouTube and shit.
Right. And listeners, this is not the podcast that gives you, like, goes down into great, like, historical detail and stuff. I have 7 pages on this, and that's one of the longest scripts that I've ever had. But still, this does not scratch the surface of what the Templars were, what they meant, what they did, and everything about them. There is a lot more to know about them and to learn about them than you'll learn here. So I encourage everybody, if they're interested, go out and just look it up. It's good stuff.
Yeah, there's no way to get through this in an hour, probably hour and a half podcast by the time we're done with this subject.
Well, and then a part 2, there's not enough time for that. This is like the Templars and their evolution is an entire podcast series.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the Knights Templar were a Christian organization whose mission was to protect European travelers visiting sites in the Holy Land. They also carried out military operations against the Saracens. A Saracen is an Arab or Muslim, especially at the time of the Crusades. They were Catholic special forces. These guys were fucking badass. It was 300 and then these guys in order of badassness. The order eventually...
Oh, I'm pretty sure there's a fire that would beg to differ.
There's a what?
We'll get to that later, though.
Oh.
A fire that would beg to differ.
So early on, they were really badass. So what
towards the end they were a little less badass.
What Scott did there was called foreshadowing. But they did eventually grow to be bankers and lenders, and they ended up lending kings and countries vast sums of money. Their banking organization, though, it did serve a purpose of protection, as it allowed pilgrims to deposit assets at the beginning of a trip and withdraw them in the Holy Land once they got there. This was a way to prevent travelers from losing their money in the case of robbery. So, Christian armies conquered Jerusalem in the year 1099. The movie Kingdom of Heaven. Have you ever seen that? With Legolas? who ironically has 2 legs. I don't know why they call him Legolas.
Orlando Bloom.
Yeah, Bloom. Yeah.
Blaine? Bloom.
Orlando Blaine. Aw. That's like Orlando Bloom and David Blaine's baby. That'd be so cute. We need to get a picture of that.
He's got pointy ears and can stand still for a really long time.
Blood has been spilt on this night. Anyway, so he's in the movie Kingdom of Heaven. It's about this time period, the beginning of the Crusades. And though having historical inaccuracies, it does do a good job of setting the mood, both civil and political, in the area at that time. I also recommend everybody go see that. That's a very good movie. It's entertaining. So because the trek went through the Crusades and the trek to the Holy Land went through no man's land in a lot of places, pilgrims were often robbed and killed. Around 1118, French knight Hugues de Payan created a military order. Now, there's a lot of French names, and I'm going to try to do them, and I think I do okay. I did take French. I kind of know the pronunciation.
Please tell me you're doing a French accent today, too.
Oh, I'm not going to do a French accent, but I do have something prepared. I do have French written across my chest. I mean, I'm somewhat familiar with French. Not that I'm fluent at all. Don't even. Fromage. That's the extent of my French. Anyway, so Hugues de Payan created a military order along with 8 relatives and acquaintances, calling it the Poor Fellow Soldiers of Christ and the Temple of Solomon. One chronicler, Simon de Saint-Bertin, implies that the Knights Templar originated earlier, before the death of Godfrey of Bouillon in 1100. He says he, meaning Godfrey, was reigning magnificently, had decided not to return to the shadows of the world after suffering such dangers for God's sake. On the advice of the princes of God's army, they vowed themselves to God's temple under this rule. They would renounce the world, give up personal goods, free themselves to pursue purity, and lead a communal life wearing a poor habit, only using arms to defend the land against the attacks of the insurgent pagans when necessity demanded. There you go. Now, pagans to me is problematic. They don't mean pagans. They mean Muslims. But pagans was kind of a catch-all for non-Christian at the time. But later chroniclers write that Hugues de Payan approached King Baldwin II of Jerusalem, whose reign began in 1118, with 8 knights, 2 of whom were brothers, and all of whom were his relatives by either blood or marriage, in order to form the Order of the Knights Templar. The other knights were Godfrey de Saint-Omer, Payan de Montdidier, Archambault de Saint-Aignan, André de Montbard, Geoffrey Bison, or Geoffrey Bisson, and 2 men recorded only by the names of Rousseau and Gondomar. Baldwin approved the foundation of the order and entrusted the Temple of Jerusalem to its care. Either way, by whatever their origin story is, they were officially funded and sorry, I got a weird notification. They were officially funded and recognized. The new order was initially criticized, as all new orders are, but in 1129 they were endorsed by Bernard de Clairvaux and the Catholic Church. Bernard wrote a pamphlet titled In Praise of the New Knighthood, which bolstered their growth. Hugues died in Palestine in 1136. The causes of his death are not known, but it is generally thought that he died of natural causes. So, and that was the founder of the order. So in 1139, Pope Innocent II issued a papal bull which allowed the Knights Templar special rights. Among them, the Templars were exempt from paying taxes, permitted to build their own oratories, and were held to no one's authority except the Pope's. So now the Pope had its own private army, and they didn't have to answer to anyone. The Pope didn't really care what happened on the day-to-day either, so you can imagine the debauchery that these soldiers got up to. However...
So they just turned into mercenaries.
And that's how they got their money too. How they accumulated their money.
Mm-hmm.
But if that was true, they did. Even if that was true, they did eventually develop a code. These guys were soldiers and they were warriors and they had PTSD and all sorts of stuff. So I'm not sure how adherent they were to this code, but members did swear an oath of poverty, chastity, and obedience. Poverty is clearly not true. Chastity, obedience, maybe. They weren't allowed to drink, gamble, or swear. Prayer was essential to their daily life, and the Templars expressed particular adoration for the Virgin Mary. This worship of Mary persists in the Catholic Church today. As the Knights Templar grew in size and status, it established new chapters throughout Western Europe. At the height of their influence, they boasted a sizable fleet of ships, they owned the Mediterranean island of Cyprus, and served as a primary bank and lending institution to Europe's monarchs and nobles. The group developed a reputation as fierce fighters during the Crusades, driven by religious fervor and forbidden from retreating unless significantly outnumbered. That last part is true for all soldiers and all armies. The Templars built numerous castles and fought and often won battles against Islamic armies. Their fearless style of fighting became a model for other military orders. In the 1200s, the Saracens retook Jerusalem. The fall of Acre in 1291 was the last Templar stronghold to fall. By the 13th century, Acre had become a major center of international trade. Key exports included goods such as spices, sugar, glass, and textiles. In return, ships entered the harbor loaded with metal weapons, horses, and other supplies, and were vital to the Crusaders' defense of Christianity in the whole land. Yea, God. With the Crusaders' power in decline, a new dynasty known as the Mamluks, who were descendants of former slaves to the Sultan, go slave uprising, rose in Egypt. After crushing a Mongol invasion in 1281, the Mamluks turned their attention to the Crusaders, hoping to kick them out of the Holy Land for good. In the spring of 1291, the Mamluk Sultan Al-Ashraf Khalil marched against Acre with a force of more than 100,000 cavalry and foot soldiers. They ended up taking it. Over the next few decades, support for the order began to erode. Resentment for the order by European leaders who were increasingly indebted to them as they became increasingly wealthy and powerful grew. This kind of reminds me, you're not going to get it, sorry. This kind of reminds me, though, of the Iron Bank in Game of Thrones. It was the central bank for everybody, and even the richest people went to them for money and loans, and they controlled a whole lot, and were kind of douchey about it, as banks are.
Yeah, it's just like that. It's kind of Rothschildy too.
Yes, yeah, it is. Yeah, that's a good call. I know in Game of Thrones, in fact, I think the Rothschilds kind of modeled their approach to banking in the same way that the Templars did. It was successful.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah.
Also, if you don't know about Game of Thrones, it was inspired and kind of modeled after the War of the Roses, which, if you're not into medieval history, you're not going to be terribly familiar. But it is it was a war between the Lancasters and Tudors, I want to say. Anyway, they're
Did the Lancasters make guns and the Tudors made houses?
Sure. I don't know. It's the family that King Henry VIII came from.
Okay.
So anyway,
yeah, I've never heard of the War on Roses or the Roses War, whatever the fuck you said.
War of the Roses. It's something we should do. It's
War of the Roses.
Incredibly complicated, and people are murdered, and they're
there's a good I don't know, 500, 600, 700 year period where I just don't care about history for some reason. It just doesn't interest me.
Yeah, I get that. There's some pieces of history that I don't know care about, but
knights and castles and shit is just a little too fantasy-ish for me, I think. Even though it's real, it just I expect there to be fucking dragons and shit.
Oh, see, I love it. I go to the Renaissance Festival. I have medieval swords and stuff.
Nerd.
Yep. I dress up in everything.
Oh, speaking of nerds, I saw something on Facebook yesterday. I shared it. I don't know if you saw it or not. They were listing the best sci-fi TV shows ever, as voted on by the public.
Oh, yeah.
Guess what came in number 1?
Yeah, I saw. What was it?
Yeah, Firefly.
Drum roll. Firefly.
The first...
It's very good.
Star Trek on the list was like number 8.
The original? I like the original because of what it became, but I don't really like the original.
That was the highest ranked Star Trek, though, was the original series.
It's fucking original. I don't get it. Like, whatever. I don't know. It just wasn't as good as the next generation.
As Firefly?
Or no, it wasn't as good as Firefly either. Now, Firefly being the best, I have a problem with that, but we've gotten into that before. For that debate, check out our nerddom episode. Was that our nerddom? Was that where we talked about it?
Yeah, probably. That's where you went on like a 15-minute off the top of your head Star Trek rant.
I've seen every single one. I love it. That's the goal for humanity. So, the fall of the Templars. So, after they were defeated in Acre, their support began to erode over the next few decades. Resentment for the order by European leaders. I already read all that. Let me go. Oh, yeah. Okay. So, King Philip IV of France was especially resentful of them as they had denied him additional loans. This twerpy fucking brat vowed to bring down the order because of it. I hate royalty. Like, royalty, the idea of royalty just enrages me. It's fucking ridiculous and stupid. On Friday, October the 13th, 1307, and just so you know, everybody knows, it's this date that started the idea that Friday the 13th is unlucky.
Why is Friday the 13th unlucky?
Well, because on Friday, October the 13th in 1307, scores of French Templars were arrested, including the order's Grandmaster Jacques de Molay. Many of the knights were brutally tortured until they confessed to false charges, which included heresy, homosexuality, financial corruption, devil worshipping, fraud, spitting on the cross, and more. Now, some of these, there's probably a little bit of truth in some of that, but I wouldn't buy devil worshipping. They probably weren't too terribly corrupt just because of the source that is charging them. I think it was probably King Philip that was the fucking asshole in this one. But they there's corruption everywhere, so maybe.
It's still the Catholic Church, though, too. Like, they probably were pretty corrupt.
And, yeah.
And that many guys hanging out with each other, not allowed to fuck women. They're for sure fucking each other in the ass every once in a while.
Yeah. I'm sure. It's just the way that happens occasionally. Apparently, especially in the Catholic Church. I'm not sorry. A few years later, dozens of Templars were burned at the stake in Paris for their confession. De Molay was executed in 1314. Molay was set to death together with Godfrey de Charnay in 1314 as a direct result of Cardinal Legate's decisions and actions rather than being ordered by King Philip the Fair. That's King Philip the 14th. Twerpy brat, not fair. He was burned at the stake on the Ile de Javiot in the Seine, which is the river through Paris. The most probable date of the execution was, according to Alain de Mergue and others, which was the 11th of March in 1314, although it is also quoted as being the 18th of March. It doesn't matter. He was killed in March in 1314.
Second week of March.
Yeah. Of Molay's death, Henri Chollet gives this account. The cardinals dallied with their duty until 18 March 1314, when on a scaffold in front of Notre Dame, Jacques de Molay, Templar Grand Master, Geoffrey de Charnay, Master of Normandy, Hugues de Perrot, Visitor of France, and Godfrey de Gonavie, Master of Aquitaine, were brought forth from the jail in which for nearly 7 years they had lain, to receive the sentence agreed upon by the cardinals in conjunction with the Archbishop of Sens and some other prelates whom they had called in. Considering the offenses which the culprits had confessed and confirmed, the penance imposed was in accordance with rule that of perpetual imprisonment. The affair was supposed to be concluded when, to the dismay of the prelates and wonderment of the assembled crowd, Jacques de Molay and Godfrey de Charnac arose. They had been guilty, they said, not of the crimes imputed to them, but of basely betraying their order to save their own lives. It was pure and holy. The charges were fictitious and the confessions false. Hastily, the cardinals delivered them to the Prévôt of Paris and retired to deliberate on this unexpected contingency. But they were saved all trouble. When the news was carried to Philip, he was furious. A short consultation with his council only was required. The canons pronounced that a relapsed heretic was to be burned without a hearing. The facts were notorious, and no formal judgment by the papal commission needed to be waited for. That same day, by sunset, a pyre was erected on a small island in the Seine, the Isle de Juifs. I don't know. Juifs. Juifs? I don't know. Near the palace garden. There, Desmoulins, de Charnay, de Gonville, and de Perrot were slowly burned to death, refusing all offers of pardon for retraction, and bearing their torment with a composure which won them the reputations of martyrs among the people, who reverently collected their ashes as relics. Note: the account varies by one day, not unusual for chroniclers of the Middle Ages. So, under pressure from King Philip, Pope Clement V reluctantly dissolved the Knights Templar in 1312. The group's property and monetary assets were given to a rival order, the Knights Hospitaliers. I don't know. However, it's not. They were given to another order. However, it's thought that King Philip and King Edward II of England seized most of the Knights Templars' wealth. In September 2001, Barbara Fraile found a copy of the Chinon parchment in the Vatican secret archives, a document which explicitly confirms that in 1308, Pope Clement V absolved Jacques de Molay and other leaders of the order, including Geoffrey de Charnay, Hugues de Perrot. She published her findings in the Journal of Medieval History in 2004. Another Chinon parchment dated 20 August 1308, addressed to Philip IV of France, well known to historians, stated that absolution had been granted to all those Templars that had confessed to heresy, and restored to them to the sacraments and to the unity of the Church. So, this was the end of the official and public Knights Templar, but rumors state that they fled and a small group ended up in Scotland. There they started their order under a new name called the Scottish Rite. The Scottish Rite eventually grew into the Americas, where they took on another name, the Masonic Temple. But that is a story for next week. Dun, dun, dun. A brief history of the Templars.
I'm pretty sure you just made up like half those fucking names.
Sure.
So that brings us to the mystery of what the fuck happened to all their goddamn treasure and gold and religious artifacts and shit.
What happened to their stuff? They had a lot of it.
What do you know about the Shugborough inscription?
Fucking nothing.
All right, well, you're about to learn.
All right.
The inscription is a sequence of letters, OUOSVAVV, between the letters D and M, carved on an 18th century shepherd's monument in the grounds of Shugborough Hall in Staffordshire, England.
Cousins with Suge Knight.
Yeah, they get together every year for Christmas.
Well, not anymore. See, he's in prison and he's blind or something. He's fake blind. He's blind like
he's fake blind. He still flinches when you punch him.
Yeah, he's blind like Weinberg is crippled. Or Weinstein. Sorry.
Weinstein. I was gonna say, who the fuck is Weinberg?
Harvey, isn't there a Harvey Weinberg? Wasn't that sounds familiar? Anyway, yeah.
Wrong Jewish last name.
Yep.
Fucking anti-Semite motherfucker.
Fucking, I need to examine myself. I do.
The monument is a mirrored image of Nicholas Poussin's painting, The Shepherds of Arcadia. The reversed images suggest that it was likely copied from an engraving, not the original painting. It has never been satisfactorily explained and has been called one of the world's top uncracked ciphertexts. Josiah Wedgwood, Charles Darwin, and Charles Dickens are all said to have attempted to solve the enigma, and all failed just like everybody else.
Were any of them code breakers? Cryptologists?
We're going to get to them in just a second, actually.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I don't think Charles Darwin was a code breaker.
No, he was a biologist. And Charles Dickens wasn't. He was a fucking author.
I read that Darwin ate one of every animal that he discovered.
I read that too.
And that's fucking awesome.
That's human as fuck.
What if you discover some new animal that nobody else has ever seen, and it's the most delicious thing in the world?
Don't tell anybody.
Exactly. You keep that shit for yourself.
These fucking monkeys taste like jelly.
Well, that's why Komodo dragons are so mean. They know that they taste good. They have to defend themselves.
I'd eat one. I'd totally eat one.
I mean, I wouldn't turn it down. Given the opportunity, I'd eat a bite of Komodo dragon.
You know, I respect Earth. I respect Mother Nature. I don't want to see anything extinct that is not naturally evolutionary, not supposed to extinct, but I'd eat the fuck out of a panda.
Yeah. If they didn't want to go extinct, they'd work better at being bears and not be so lazy and dumb.
And fuck more. Fucking fuck bears. Too. Jesus,
they're
it's easy.
Too lazy to fuck.
Everybody fucking does it. Anyway.
So this monument was built sometime between 1748 and 1763. Commissioned by Thomas Anson, paid for it by his brother Admiral George Anson, and fashioned by the Flemish sculptor Peter Scheemakers.
Scheemakers?
The Schee makers.
Oh, like a name.
Scheemakers?
Okay.
Yeah. The relief copy of the Poussin painting is contained within a rustic arch and shows a woman and 3 shepherds, 2 of whom are pointing at a tomb. On the tomb is carved in Latin text, Et in Arcadia ego, which translates to I am also in Arcadia, or I am even in Arcadia. The carving displays a number of small alterations compared to the original painting, and an extra sarcophagus or pyramid has been placed on top of the main tomb. The placement of the fingers pointing to letters on the tomb have changed too, which leads to some theorying and what the fuck it means.
Wait, what? Something's changed on a tomb?
Yeah, the tomb that was built in the 1700s is made to be the mirror image of a painting. But there are certain things that are changed.
Okay.
Between the painting and the sculpture. The carving.
That sounds like some Leonardo da Vinci shit.
They should make a book out of that.
What out of what?
And then make a movie. I'd cast Tom Hanks in that.
Oh, like about these codes? And
yeah.
These ciphers and
and trying to figure out these codes and where they lead to and
solving puzzles,
hidden treasures and whatnot. Yeah.
Possibly having to do with the Vatican.
Yeah.
They should make a movie out of that.
Yeah. Somebody get on that.
I think Tom Cruise would be good. Wait, Tom Cruise? No. Who am I thinking of? I'm thinking of David Spade would be a good cast for that. You see Joe Dirt solving problems and shit? Or solving puzzles and shit?
See, I would want Dana Carvey or something. If we're gonna go casting a funny person,
Jack Black, man.
I want to see Garth doing it. Jack Black would be a good one. Yeah. But only if he's Nacho Libre, Jack Black.
He's got to be. Yeah, that's the only thing that makes sense.
Mystery-solving luchador. What's not to love about that?
Yeah. That's obvious now that you say it.
So above the recreated painting are 2 stone heads, one showing a smiling bald-headed man, and the other bearing a likeness to the goat-horned Greek god Pan.
So that sounds like maybe I'm just a pervert, but that sounds like a bunch of penis symbolism. A smiling, bald-headed man and something with it's horny. Sounds like penis references.
I could see how you get that.
We can see how I could get that, is what you're saying.
Exactly. Yeah, I can see how you could get that.
I don't know why they confuse me for gay. That doesn't make sense to me.
I don't know. It's weird that you put your mouth all the way around the mouth of that bottle to drink out of it.
Is that... I mean, you got to get it at the back of your throat. How else do you drink stuff? Jeez, man.
Just pour it right in.
If you can't feel it in your lungs, then nah, you're not drinking right.
So below the relief carving on this monument, a unknown craftsman carved the mysterious letters that we mentioned just a minute ago. 8 of them on the first line, 2 of them on the second line, contained within the letters D and M on each side. The theory goes, in 1982, the authors of the pseudo-historical book, The Holy Blood and the Holy Grail...
I read that.
...suggested that... Okay.
Yeah, I have it somewhere.
Was it?
No, the X has it. Huh?
Was it any good? Do you remember it at all?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was good. It was extremely informative. It was extremely well researched. It had all sorts of information. It was a bit of a tough read because the information was super dense, but yeah, I loved it.
It is listed as pseudo-historical, though, so...
Well, it is conspiracy.
With a grain of salt.
It does. What it does is it goes to historical events and then does extrapolate, like we do. I mean, they're conspiracy theorists, honestly, but they make sense and they make very good arguments.
The book suggests that Pausen, the painter of the original painting, was a member of the Priority of Sion, and that his Shepherds of Arcadia painting contained hidden meanings of great esoteric significance.
I am sorry for being that guy. It's Priory of Sion.
Okay.
Yeah, my bad.
Whatever it is, from what I can tell with a quick search, it's a completely made-up secret society that didn't start until the 1950s.
Yes, possibly.
So whatever their name is, it doesn't really matter. It's not real. In 2003, Dan Brown copied these themes into his best-selling novel, The Da Vinci Code. You went into that a little bit ago. Speculation then grew that the inscription may encode secrets related to the Priory of Sion or the location of the Holy Grail.
I want to say
part of the...
About the Priory of Sion, though, that group, that name with that group was developed later, but that group has a very long lineage. It just has changed names over the years.
Supposedly.
Yes. Supposedly. For the purposes of Higher Minds podcast, it's absolute fact. Because we solve mysteries.
I can't wait to hear how you solve this one.
It's easy. I've already solved it.
Where the fuck were we? As part of the Shugborough promotion, some individuals who had previously worked at the code breakers at Bletchley Park pursued this line of investigation. Oliver Lawn proposed that the letters may encode the phrase Jesus H. Defy, where the H stands for Christos, the Greek word for Messiah.
Wait. H stands for Christos?
Yeah, I don't get it either.
Like Jesus H. Christ?
Oh, Jesus H. Defy. But yeah.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know how the fuck you get Christos from a single H either. But
maybe maybe everybody's been saying it wrong. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's not Jesus H Christ as in that's his middle name. Maybe it's Jesus H Christ as in that's the way you spell it. There, it's an informative H, not a initial. Jesus H
Christ
Christ
with an H in it.
Yeah.
Not Christ.
Yeah. Jesus H Christ.
Yeah.
Christ.
References to Jesus' bloodline, which allegedly descend from a non-divine Jesus and was preserved by the priory. Another theory says that fingers pointing towards the letters on the tomb and other letters that are hidden within the carving suggest the Knights of the Templar took a trip across the Atlantic Ocean with their treasure, and a couple hundred years before Columbus and a couple hundred years after Leif Erikson. So they'd have been the first Southern Europeaners to make it that far, probably.
Yep.
According to this theory, letters on the inscription can be decoded to read Nova Scotia. One of the shepherds has his thumb covering the R in the word Arcadia, changing it to Acadia, which is the old French name for Nova Scotia. Another theory says adding up the letters shows them to come to a sum of 2,810. This number may be significant, as Shugborough is 2,810 miles from the island of Nova Scotia in Canada. I did this, and from what I can tell, it's about 2,700 miles.
You did
not
what?
2,800 miles. Mapped out from England to Nova Scotia.
Oh, I thought you meant you made that journey.
Yes.
No.
Yes, I took a red eye to England, and then sailed back this morning.
For the show? Dude, that is commitment.
Just for this show.
Good job. We applaud you.
With all the shit going on, I risked an international flight for this show.
People may have died because of it. I think that you are a hero, sir. Thank you.
Well, I'm definitely a hero. That brings us over to North America, Nova Scotia. That's 2 shows in a row that Canadian shit has shown up on. That just dawned on me. Last week was about a Canadian guy. This week is about a treasure that's in Canada.
Go Canada.
Theory goes that when King Philip IV of France ordered the arrest of key Templar leaders on Friday the 13th, October 1307, then the Pope followed suit and ended November. The Templars fled to Scotland, like you said. And it's believed from Scotland they then sailed to North America, bringing with them all kinds of treasures and gold and religious artifacts, including the Holy Grail.
Now, the definition of Grail is in dispute. Thank you, Dan Brown. We can get that later, though.
I don't think it was in dispute until like the mid 20th century.
So that's not true. That's not quite true. So there was, there's been speculation that since his execution, there has been speculation that Jesus had descendants. The very first Christians, known as the Gnostics, that's Gnostics with a G, they were the very first followers of Christ, and they were called Gnostics because that is that comes from, and this is off the top of my head, the Greek word for knowledge or something. Anyway, but their idea was a lot more human, but a lot less divine Jesus. For instance, they were saying that their teaching was that when Jesus said, "I am the way and the light," you're only going to find salvation by following me. That whole statement that he says, their interpretation was is that he's not saying that by following him and making him divine is the way to salvation, but doing things the way that he does, and that divinity is in everybody. And the Christianity that we know of today is a crazily corrupt and perverted version of what the very first Christians believe Jesus was. And so that goes to his lineage and through his...
Anything 2,000 years later that has been retranslated countless times is not going to be the same as what it originally was.
By powerful men with agendas. Yeah.
That shit has gone through so many different translations and censorships and everything over the last 2,000 years that who knows what the fuck it actually was originally.
Right. And so the argument is that the church intentionally dropped out his lineage and his humanity to make him more divine, so he's more of a worshipable figure, and that his what ended up being his daughter got whisked away and was the ancestor of the Merovingian clan in France.
And it's known fact that the Vatican has books to the Bible that are not included in the Bible.
They're called the Apocrypha. There's the book of Judas. There's the Gospel of Judas. There's the Gospel of Mary, which the Catholics try to destroy, centuries ago. Didn't end up doing it, but yeah, there's all sorts of corroborating evidence that these conspiracies that actually happened, that involved the Templars and all that.
Yeah, I can't say for sure that one thing or another happened, but I can say for sure that the Catholic Church has lied in the past.
And has done some horrible stuff for power in the past.
Yeah, they have a history of doing shit to cover other things up.
And the ability of altering mankind for their benefit.
Yeah. So that brings us to Oak Island. Where theories about artifacts present on the island range from pirate treasure to Shakespearean manuscripts to possibly the Holy Grail or the Ark of the Covenant. It's pretty well assumed that there's a treasure on the island. They just don't know whose treasure is on the island.
Or where, or what it is.
They're pretty sure where.
Well, it's under that submerged, tunnel thingy, right?
Yep. Yeah, I'll get to that in just a
second.
Yeah. Stories of the treasure on the island date back to the late 1700s, so this isn't some new thing. Around 1802, the first excavation began. They started digging in a low spot they believed might be buried pirate treasure.
Arr.
About 2 feet down, they found flagstones. Oak platforms were also reportedly discovered about every 10 feet as they continued to dig down. Accounts also mentioned tool marks or pick scrapes on the walls of the pit, and that the earth was noticeably looser there and not as hard packed, suggesting that it had been dug at one point in the past. They also discovered layers of charcoal, putty, and coconut fiber, along with a large stone inscribed with symbols nobody there recognized or could read. This stone has since gone missing in the last couple hundred years, and has come to be known as the Warning Stone.
Warning? How do you spell that?
Just below the... Huh?
How do you spell that stone? What kind of stone?
A warning stone?
Warning. Oh, I thought you said orning. But warning. With a W.
Oh.
Okay, that makes sense.
Warning.
All right. I know how to spell that.
Just below the stone, at a depth of about 90 feet, the pit flooded with seawater. Hence the Warning Stone. They don't know what the fuck was carved on it, but they suggest that it's, hey, quit fucking digging, you're gonna flood this tunnel.
And then nobody gets it.
Probably worded a little nicer than that.
Yeah. Thou hast to stop thine digging.
Workers attempted to recover the treasure by digging a tunnel from a second shaft down, which also flooded. Fast forward to 1849, and another group tried to re-excavate back down to that 90-foot level, and ended up flooding again. This time, workers assumed that the water was connected to the sea somehow, because the level of the water in the tunnel, in the shafts, rose and fell with the tide. So they're connected out to sea somehow. It is believed that a section of the beach was dug up in order to make tunnels that would flood the money pit, as a sort of booby trap if it was dug down to that level. They found a few pieces of gold chain, a heart-shaped stone, a few other small pieces. Basically just enough to keep people interested in digging. Wood pulled from the pit dates back to as early as the early 1400s. And coconut fibers found in the pit have been dated to as old as 500 AD.
Wow.
That's some old fucking coconut fiber.
I bet it's still good.
I read that fairly recently a 500-year-old gemstone brooch was found there too.
Wow. I do want to point out,
not a whole lot of treasure, but just enough to keep people interested in digging.
Yeah, I'm interested. I mean, it's cool. I like this kind of stuff, so I would do it. But I want to point out about this, as you said, shaft and booby, and I didn't say shit.
I'm proud of you.
Yes.
You're really maturing in your old age.
Within the span of this podcast, yes.
Next week, you'll be able to hear shaft and booby in the same sentence and not even make a reference to me saying shaft and booty in the same sentence.
I can't promise that. I might even giggle. Booby.
Booby trap.
It's a trap for boobies.
Like a mouse trap.
Don't they call those on Mammogram?
I also watched a documentary the other night about a father and son archaeological team from back in like the 1930s. They were working to decode and follow some of the Knights Templar clues in search of their treasure, basically. Since it was talking about people from back in like the 1930s, there wasn't any like real video footage of them, so it was one of those documentaries that's like all recreated with modern people and shit. It seemed pretty accurate though. The documentary follows them from here in the US to Europe and eventually to either the Middle East or Africa. I don't know where exactly they finally ended up at. Meanwhile, they're searching. This is late 1930s. The Nazis are looking for the same kind of shit. Religious artifacts and occult shit. So while they're searching, they're also trying to stay one step ahead of the fucking Nazis during this whole thing too. Eventually they end up finding some kind of a lost temple carved right into the side of a canyon. And while exploring it, they find more clues left by the Knights Templar. Eventually the son finds a hidden room inside the temple. Once again, has to get through booby traps and shit, just like on Oak Island. So the room he found was full of treasure. He had found one of the Templar stashes in this documentary. A member of the Knights Templar was left to defend the treasure, but that was a couple hundred years ago, so he's not really guarding shit anymore by the time this guy finds it in the 30s. As it turns out, the site is where the Knights Templar hid the Holy Grail, and the son actually found it. As he's coming out of the tunnel and tomb and all this kind of shit with the Grail to show his father, there's like an earthquake or something, and the temple starts to collapse and cave in. And unfortunately, he drops the Grail while running for his life. And it's been buried under the countless tons of rubble ever since.
I just got that. That was horrible. Oh my God. You didn't do that. Oh, very good. Very good. Thank you. I needed that.
So these guys, the dad is Henry Walton Jones and his son is Henry Walton Jones. It's something like The Last Crusade or something like that is the name of this documentary. It's really good. Definitely worth checking out.
That was brilliant, Scott. I like that. Good job. I would, you know what?
Prior to going into this, that's all I knew about the Knights Templar.
So, the last documentary was obviously clear speculation. Those aren't the facts we're following.
No, it was portrayed as
was it?
historically accurate.
All right. Especially that tank scene. So yeah. I assume that was the extent of your research.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I got.
Yeah, so that was what we will tell you about the Knights Templar. There's more to know, there's more to see, but yeah. That was this episode. But
did you know his middle name until right now?
No. What was it, Walter?
Walton.
Walton. No, I didn't know that. Thank you.
Yeah. Henry Walton Jones.
How did you find that out?
Wikipedia.
It says, oh, wow, okay. I didn't even realize that. What, is it Spielberg that gave him? Who wrote that? Spielberg?
I don't know who the hell wrote that. Spielberg directed it.
Yeah. I don't know. But anyway, if you want to talk to us about all of our inaccuracies, where could you tell us?
You can go to hell if you want to tell us about our inaccuracies.
Go fuck yourselves.
If you want to praise us on the good job and well done and attaboys and shit, you can talk to us on Facebook, Twitter,
and on Twitter. We're there.
The Instagrams. Or you can email us direct at highermindspodcast@gmail.com.
highermindspodcast@gmail.com. highermindspodcast@gmail.com. All right. I'm done.
Yeah, I had never dug into the fucking Knights Templar before.
No?
I learned a lot of shit.
Was it interesting? Did you find it interesting?
Interesting-ish.
So when I suggested this, you compared them to the Illuminati, and one major distinction, so the Illuminati included people like Galileo and Newton and stuff. And the thing about them is, whereas the Knights Templar were like pro-Catholic, they supported the Catholics and its secrecy, the Illuminati were Promethean in their desire to bring these secrets to light and bring knowledge to the people. So that's kind of they were.
See, and I lumped them together just because they're secret societies. The Templar, the Masons, the Illuminati, Skull and Bones. It's all just various powerful secret societies.
The Hellfire Club.
Yeah.
And we should do more secret society stuff. But those secret societies are conflicting.
Yeah, a lot of them are overlapping and intermingling and shit too, it seems like.
Yeah. Well, so Newton and Copernicus were devout Catholics, but they were still against the Catholic secrecy. So yeah, they interlapped or overlapped in that way too.
Right.
So it's interesting. Yeah. I like this. And then we'll get into more next week.
Yeah. We're getting into the Masons next week, right?
Yeah, which some say have still have a lot of power. Although I think as of the last few decades, the Masonic power has waned. But I know that there's a big conspiracy that they were involved in the Hoffa thing.
And a good handful of presidents have been Freemasons too.
Like, I think the first 10 were.
A lot of the founding fathers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Washington was for sure. I know that.
Jefferson was.
Yeah. I think the Bushes were too, if I remember right. I don't know. There's probably a dozen.
I know they were Skull and Bones
that have been Freemasons.
They could be Masons too, yeah.
Yeah, maybe that's what I'm thinking. They were Skull and Bones. But there's been probably about a dozen presidents that were Freemasons.
That we know of, yeah.
Yeah, that we know of.
Yeah. All right, well, this has been a Higher Minds podcast. The Higher Minds podcast.
Yeah. I'm Scott.
I'm Papa Darby.
Deuces, everybody.
Deuces.